I think that many of you are making the right steps, or would like to make the right steps in this direction. However, everyone would like to begin with something simple, or to begin with augmentation of capability of stuff with AI capability or algorithms which are not yet fully robotized. Certainly, if AI is able to generate advice, recommendations, consulting to customers, can provide data, can make it accessible to wider audiences, help to personalize website content and data. Why don't we use this very same AI for forecasting and staff recommendations? Why don't we use it in internal retail processes, for instance, in autofill order picking? And with this idea in mind, I'd like to give the floor to another speaker from Sberbank, Evgeniy Zhilin, the Managing Director of Head of Artificial Intelligence Center of the Services Block, and Anton Lebedev, the Executive Director of Data Research in the Services Block from Sberbank. Welcome. Evgeny, Anton, you have the floor. Dear colleagues, I'm very happy to welcome all of you at this important conference, albeit online this year. My name is Evgeniy Zhilin, the Managing Director, Artificial Intelligence Center Services Block, Sberbank. Now, what is a services block? First of all, my area of responsibility involves not only technical processes, but also all of the transformation and the block activity. Now, what is the services block? This is the upper-level unit uniting all of the service functions: security, construction, building management, stock take, and one of the most important functions for logistics. Now, speaking of logistics, supply, why do we mention it in terms of retail? The functioning of the retail or office units is not very important for large companies, but in our context, size does matter. To understand better, Anton will give you more details later. We are expanding our ICU assortment. And of course, we are speaking of over 15,000 branches that have to be supplied regularly, seamlessly, without delay. So accordingly, the transformation touched on the supply processes. The idea was, why collecting all of these claims, correcting them, processing them? You understand the nature of the process. It is pretty similar everywhere. Let us predict in advance the needs based on aggregated historical data. This job was tackled, however, many pitfalls were overcome, and Anton is going to tell you more. Anton, you have the floor.
Hi everyone, Lebedev Anton here. It's the Center for Artificial Intelligence. I'll give you more on the task Evgeny has just articulated. My presentation will be structured in the following way. I will start with the business problem we are tackling now, and I will tell you about how artificial intelligence helps us in resolving this problem. In Service Block, there is the Center for Procurement, and one of the areas of responsibility of the center is procurement and storage and supply of goods to various locations. Goods means consumables that we need for our everyday work, paper, stationery, and so on. We have more than 2,000 types of consumables on 70 groups. is the structure of it. Infrastructure venues are offices, selling offices, operating offices, cash management offices, bank offices. We have more than 15,000 venues and facilities like that. We are forecasting the amount of consumables for supplies to all facilities. So let's speak in more details about the structure of costs of the bank for such goods, consumables. The major part of costs go to auto-replenishment. What is it? Auto-replenishment is the service of the procurement center supporting automated supply of consumables to facilities of the bank. The main consumable is A4 paper. So let's have a look at this process in more details. In this process, a lot of stakeholders are participating. The main people are logistics managers from procurement center and heads of facilities, consumers, heads of offices from the retail side usually. So logistics managers first define the needs and then articulate the request and then sends the data for approval to the leaders of facilities. They can adjust the data and reconfirm them and then send it to the center of procurement, and additional adjustments might be made. Then the deliveries are planned and then sent to the facilities. And confirmation of order and adjustment of the needs is the point of interest for us. Let's get into details. In this stage, the head of each facility should assess the future supply, and this assessment is based on understanding of two things: the need in consumables in this particular office and the stock of this consumable in his office. And logistics manager helps him in this, basing on his expert knowledge and historical data on supplies, and basing on the data on urgent orders, is also preparing an assessment. This assessment goes to a series of confirmations and clarifications. We have more than 15,000 facilities, venues, and this information from all facilities is consolidated. Many logistics managers participate in the process, and then it goes down to one file. And here we see that we have a large area for improvements. We can automate this process and apply artificial intelligence for it. How? Let's, for a deeper dive into it, let's have a look at a simple task, but a similar one from retail, defining how much X products should be sent to Y store at a point of time. So supplies is how much we consume plus the stock. In retail, consumption is known. It is taken from the system of costs, expenses, reports, and all other types of information comes from automated warehouse systems. So this task is resolved quite easily in retail. Our task is similar, but we have some challenges here. We do not know the real amount of consumption. We do not have systems for consumables, monitoring the consumables. And the same thing about the stock. We do not have the system of audit for stock for various consumers. So we have the equation with two unknowns. What can we do here? Let's have a look at an ideal scenario where we supply as much as they need. No deficit, no excessive consumables. And this means supplies total to consumption. How can we assess consumption? We can assess consumption asking the numbers from consuming facilities. There are some drawbacks to this approach. The main is that consumers sometimes exaggerate their consumption, sometimes many times, and we will talk about it more. And in our case, more than 15,000 facilities and ask and send requests to all of them to assess consumption is too much work. We want to go away from such scenario. We can set the standards of consumption as another approach, and here we can have a situation like with the one with a chair for American pilot. It is average height, average weight for a pilot, and all pilots feel not very comfortable. So here, various venues can have the same consumables delivered to them. For some of them, it might not be enough. For some of them, it might be too much, and they will have to store it somewhere. Also, an effective approach. And here we can apply artificial intelligence for this case. We can forecast the consumption based on data on previous supplies. First models were developed in this way, and their quality was higher than that of expert assessment. And that's why we launched the pilot, and we were very happy that the quality was better than the forecasting of experts. But we were happy up until we received the first feedback on the results of the process. And we did not consider the stock. If they are zero, then it's okay, or if they are constant, it's also okay. But feedback was that paper is just falling on the heads of our people from the cabinets, and stocks are growing. We have too much paper. So, okay, fine. We turned our offices into warehouses of paper as a result. What can we do next? Yes, we can hire people who can make the stock taking regularly. Yes, this is an option. We can take a more intellectual approach, automate a system with computer vision models that can check the stocks and put the data into the database, and that's how we can get this information. But since we are working with low value consumables, none of the options is economically effective. That's why we accepted that we do not have data on stocks. We do not have audit for this. What will happen if we just ignore this fact and continue forecasts based on previous supplies? Okay, this will mean more stock for our offices, and such forecasts will not be adequate. And the chart shows it in more details. We understand, having analyzed the situation, that based on only on the data on previous supplies is not an option when planning next supplies. And we work in a situation where audit of stocks is not available for us. What should we do? Well, seems like a deadlock. But let's think about what we know about our consuming facilities. What additional information do we have? Apart from general information, how much consumables were supplied to various facilities, we also have unique information characterizing the activities of these facilities. For selling branches, information on product operations that they are making, information from system of electronic queue management. For cash management centers, this is the information on requests for servicing, information on the movement of cash. For back offices, this is information from cloud systems. So there is a lot of information around. How can this information help us in what we do? The main idea of how to apply this information is very simple. The same activity calls for the same amount of consumables, requires the same amount. For instance, paper for two offices. For instance, we have two offices that offer three things. Mortgage, it takes 5 sheets of paper. Loan, 3 sheets of paper. And deposit, 1 sheet of paper. If in these two offices the number of operations in these types of services is the same, then logically enough that the consumption of paper in both offices will be the same. Sounds logical. How can we translate this idea into the language of artificial intelligence? A two-model approach was developed and implemented. The main model that forecasts that is based on data on previous supplies and forecasts the amount that will be enough to meet all the needs of the consumer. So you already know about the model and a limiting model, the model based on the data on operations services that are offered by an office, and it shows the consumption similar profile offices can show. So this is a, so bringing these two models together, we can reduce supplies, and it means lower stocks and hitting the targets of real consumption. The situation was as follows. First, we developed the main model and the limiting model for paper, then for check paper, then for several offices, then for all offices. And we realized that in 2 months we were able to cover only 2 types of consumables out of 70. We had to accelerate the development. Instruments from our colleagues from AI lab helped us in this. AutoML, especially for generation of values and selection of parameters, they helped us a lot. In some groups of consumables, AutoML was quite okay for as a final model. Just briefly about the results of application of such model approach. We've carried out several pilots so far, and there is a pilot for paper. It's still underway. A cumulative reduction of supplies is 30% now, and now it is, in real time, it is around 10%. And during the pilot, there is almost no significant negative feedback. We have more complicated pilots. For instance, pilot with colleagues from Srednyorusski Bank, colleagues from territories and sales block were able to arrange stock audit and show us data on consumption. And this helped us to reduce stocks quite dramatically, upper yellow curve, and go to real consumption. This is the green, thick green line at the bottom of the slide. At the beginning of 2022, we expect a reduction of stocks up to the optimal level. Briefly about the technology we've been using. I would like to remind you that we have around 70 groups, types of consumables, and the main model and limiting model. And so it means tens of models and hundreds of types of data. We need instruments to process it. And we used SDP, a development from our bank on Hadoop and cloud data. It allows us to effectively process big data. Then for quick testing of hypotheses and quick analytics, we need to consolidate the data in one place and to have quick access to it. And the corporate analytics platform Data Lake helps us in this. For effective implementation and launching models by schedule, we use packet execution model instrument from the bank BIM, and also AutoML from colleagues from AI Lab. So our solution will help in cases where we need to assess the future supply, but there are problems with data on consumption, or there is no data on consumption at all, and data on stocks. But if we have data on previous supplies and data that actually describes the activities of various offices, so it is low value consumables cases of audit, or cases when the amount of stock at warehouses is known and it can be calculated for products with rare stock taking or some other types of consumables. So that's it from me. I will give the floor back to my colleague. Colleagues, I would like to, finalizing Anton's presentation, I would like to draw your attention to two important insights we had when making the project. First, sometimes data and digital footprint people generate, physical employees, should be taken with a pinch of salt, because if people yes, people make mistakes. Sometimes they just create stocks, but it might be incorrect data. If algorithms copy what people do, and we will face the problem Anton mentioned, there'll be even more stocks. People are requesting stock, and algorithm is doing the same. Yes, they will have enough, but their office will turn into a warehouse due to too much stock. And another point related to real implementation, it is important to listen to feedback we have from our consumers, the consumers of our services, because without understanding that something goes wrong, without getting deeper into a problem, we say it is the problem on their side, and they are wrong in articulating their stock, and the project is dead. So you need to consider such things when doing such projects. I think we are ready to go to a Q&A session. Evgeny, a question from the viewers: how much resources do you need for development of such solution? Look, it's hard to say exactly because we have a multitask team. We we launch a model in Prom and look at the results, and then guys can switch to another project, another product, because our block is multifaceted. We have a lot of tasks to tackle, but my assessment is that I think 10 to 12 months, human months, we spent for this. Sometimes 3 or 4 people simultaneously work to tackle this. But the important thing is that when we went from forecasting the main types of consumables to rarer ones, we tried to extensively tackle this, and we added DS for the task, and then we realized that soon we will start tackling this task with the whole team, and we will spend too much time. So we just took the libraries we have in the bank, auto email, and the task was resolved quite quickly. If we could have done it first, probably we saved much more time. Thank you very much for your answer. A question to Anton: what is the uniqueness of your approach to resolving this problem, and what is the minimal scale of a company where it can when it can make sense and be a working solution? Thank you very much for this question. The uniqueness of solution is in the fact that similar solutions existing in the market are using data on stocks. Yes, it is considered that we have data on stocks, but we work both with uncertain consumption and uncertain stocks. Our solution will work in such challenging case where you do not know the amount of consumption and the stocks. And that's the uniqueness. As for the scale and the size of a company that can apply the same, obviously, this system works better when we have a lot of branches, a lot of facilities, a lot of consumers, because limiting model is basing on comparison on similarity among facilities, because without this it is hard to assess the strategic nature of some of the facilities. As for the amount, I mean hundreds or thousands of employees, I think that's the size of the company where this solution will be relevant. Okay, thank you very much. So this is it for our session. Thank you very much to all the speakers and participants. All questions I received, I will circulate it among the speakers. I think the speakers will answer your questions soon. Thank you very much for staying with us at our session, Artificial Intelligence in Retail. See you soon.